Hey there friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I'm back with a new layout for the Paige Evans design team, and today's layout is super bright. And I've already done some cutting here using one of Paige's newer cut files. It's called Wildflowers. And I went through my Horizon collection and picked out tons of bright colored papers. So I've got some orange, some pink, yellow, purple, and I'm using paper number 6 from Horizon as my background here for now, just so it can show up on camera here and you can really see how pretty this cut file is. As soon as I saw it, I knew right away what I wanted to do with it. And so I kind of shrunk the flowers down so I could basically cut a bunch of them and layer them together and overlap them and sort of span them horizontally across the page. And so now that I've got them like I want them, I don't want to have to keep taking it apart and putting it back together. So I'm just adding little dots of glue to glue all of this together so I can just move it around as one big thing. And it's going to make it a lot easier as I go. And so, yeah, I'm going to scrapbook this cute little selfie black and white picture of me and my daughter. And my thought process behind this was to possibly try to create a landscape with a blue sky and some green grass using all pattern paper. You know me, I tend to gravitate toward white backgrounds a lot of the time because I love to do mixed media, and I always feel like white paper shows off the color the best. But I wanted to challenge myself to do something a little bit different here and make my entire background pattern paper. And so this is kind of how you're going to see it here. And I want to assemble these onto another piece of paper. So I just pulled out this random color of cardstock that I don't use very often, and I'm going to cover it up basically as my base to adhere these pattern papers to. So I've got a sky and I've got some grass here, and then I've got my flowers, and that's basically already put the layout together. I mean, it's pretty much done, but I am going to add some mixed media to this because you know me, I can't just leave it as is, which I think it looks very pretty just like this. I mean, by far, it doesn't even really need any mixed media, but that's part of the fun of scrapbooking for me, is getting messy and adding my own flair to it. And so even though this is pattern paper and that green is pretty bold, but I'm still going to jazz it up, as I love to say. So I'm pulling out my white gesso here, and I know a lot of you are probably going, oh, don't do that, don't do that. I promise you it will work out in the end, but it always has to get uglier before it can get better, I guess you could say. And that's just something I've discovered in my mess making days, is that, you know, you got to get a little messy and it's going to look a little scary in the beginning. But I'm just scraping on the gesso with a palette knife. I'm using my fingers to smudge it in because I don't want any harsh lines of this white gesso. I want it to be kind of hazy and cloudy looking. And so that's where the finger smudging comes in, because if I just scrape it, you can kind of see here what I'm talking about. It looks obvious that I scraped it, and I want it to look more soft. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about there, and it did white out a lot of the color, but I'm going to cover that with ink sprays, and I think it's going to make the background stand out and just give it some different shades of blue. So all the colors I'm using here today are from Shimmer's Paints, and I've got my definitely all-time favorite blue in there. That's Jenny B Blue Vibes. It's my go-to turquoise color. And then I mixed in a little bit of a darker blue called Deep Blue Sea. And you're just going to be able to see this behind the cut file, above the cut file, and below the cut file. And even though it looks like I'm making a huge mess here, when you put the cut file back on top of it, it's really not. So it always looks worse than it is when you're actually in the process of making it. Okay, so the greens I've got here, I think I'm going to use 4 different greens. The one I just added there that's kind of like a lime green color, that one is called Don't Citron Me. And then I'm adding in a colorings called Oh Say Can You See. The Don't Citron Me is also a colorings. And then a darker green color called Velveteen Green. And then one that's more of a gold green called Elfin Magic. And so all these together, combined with the green of the background, I think it just looks really cool, and I love to do this on cardstock or pattern paper just to give some variation, and especially if I'm doing a layout like this, because I feel like it just gives it a more of a realistic look, if you will. So yeah, I'm just using my brush, I'm using the plastic packaging, I'm spraying directly onto the paper, and now you can see most of the area where I gessoed is covered up, and so it doesn't look like a big white cloud anymore. So I'm just going to keep working on it. I like to bring the pattern paper back and add it as I go, or not the pattern paper, but the cut file, just to kind of see how it looks, because even though you think you may have done too much, when you add everything back on top of it, you may not even be able to see it at all. So it's good to kind of do that as you go. And that's mainly why I glued all those pieces together, so I could just pick the whole thing up and bring it back and do that as many times as I need to without all those little pieces falling apart. So here everything is dry. I love how this turned out. It looks totally different when it's dry, and I love the different shimmers. And you can see my paper kind of warped there a little bit, but nothing too significant. I was not worried about that. So I love how that looks. I love the colors. I love the flowers, and up against the blue and the green, I think they really, really pop. So I'm going to add a little bit of tissue paper behind my photo and then start to work on embellishing. And everything I'm using here is from the Horizon collection. I am going to start out with a couple of the chipboard butterflies and moths, and then just pick through what I have left of this. I have one floral shaped paper clip left, and it's green, and I'm going to stick it onto the photo right there. And I knew going into this that I wanted to use this as my title. Very simple, one of the epoxy stickers, and it just says together. And that's kind of what inspired my color scheme, honestly. I wanted to pull pink and orange together, and there's even a little bit of yellow in that title. And so I kind of revolved my floral color scheme around that epoxy sticker. I'm going to add in another purple one underneath that, some more butterfly stickers, and that little green sticker down at the bottom that says favorite memory. And I just try a couple things here and there. And this is another case of I don't feel like this needs a ton of embellishing, because those flowers are so bright and so layered and so dimensional that I don't really want to put anything on top of those flowers other than the photo. And just a couple of butterflies. I am going to cut a couple of a dragonfly and another moth from that pattern paper, which is number 7, just to add a couple more different colors up at the top. I'm just going to fussy cut those out. I haven't done that yet on that paper. I'm surprised, because I love to fussy cut, but I have not cut those out yet. So I'm just going to cut a couple of those. I was going to use that big pink and orange chipboard one, but it was so big compared to all the other ones, so I put that one back, and then I just opted to use a couple of these smaller ones. And I did add that underneath the photo there, it's from the Ephemera die cuts. It's like a pink, it's like a flower, but it's also a label. It's got white in the middle, so you can write in that. I'm going to use that as a layering piece underneath the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down all the flowers. I'm not going to glue down the tips of those, because I want those to curl up and stand up off the page, because it makes them look a lot more real that way. And it just kind of makes the layout pop. So I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive foam behind the photo there, and you can kind of see the little cluster that I'm going to create underneath the photo. It's mainly just the title, and that little purple sticker that's also an epoxy sticker says "You and Me Forever." And I decided to raise that little piece up, but I had to get my adhesive foam just right, because it was kind of doubling up with both of those having it under there, so I had to remove some of that from behind the picture there. But I'm going to go ahead and assemble this. And I'm going to put that little favorite memory sticker, and I feel like that's kind of a tone on tone with the green on the green. I am going to add a little bit of thread. I went with yellow over on the left side, and this is just subtle pops of color, pops of texture. I felt like yellow was a good color to add right there. And then I'm going to add some light blue over to the right. And this almost blends in with the green. I should have done another layer of that color, but it's okay. It's mainly texture, and in person up close you can see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to go with some not green, I was going to say green, not green, pink to the left of the photo. And that's the only thing that's basically going to be on top of the cut file, and it's very subtle, so it's not really covering anything up. So I'm going to get all that glued down very carefully, and then I'm going to wind up doing some stitching off camera, which I'll show you that here once I do it. I decided to stitch some trails behind the butterflies up top, just to give the top a little bit of texture and dimension, and then a little bit beneath the cut file to kind of give the flowers a base. You kind of see what I'm talking about here. I just use white thread to very carefully stitch some trails, and it's very subtle. And then I use some green thread to kind of give the bottoms of the flowers kind of like a little base, and just to add some texture. It's not very, it doesn't do anything to take away from anything. It just adds some texture. And then the last thing I'm going to do is add my journaling, and that's going to wrap this up. I'm going to use my white Jelly Roll pen because it's the best color to really pop off that green. And yeah, I felt like black was, black would look too dark on the dark green paper, so the white stands out a little bit more. And I thought about adding white splatters, but then it would look like it was snowing, and I didn't want it to look like it was snowing on this beautiful, bright, springy / summery page. So I just left it as it is, and I love how this turned out. It was surprisingly really easy to make. I hope you give this cut file a try. It's like I said, it's called Wildflowers, and it's one of her newer ones. You could enlarge it and make one giant one on a layout, or shrink it down like this and cut it several times. I think it's a beautiful cut file. But here are all the details. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I hope it inspires you. I hope it gives you some ideas to try on your next project. And yeah, I'm still not sick of using the Horizon collection. I probably never will be. I think it's gorgeous, and I'm loving creating projects with it. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in my next video. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.